speaking to you on behalf of the Web Yeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I hope that the Yom Kippur holiday for everybody was meaningful. And now we go into another phase of our existence. I'm going to talk about the coming Yom Tov of Sukkot and the fact that it starts on Shabbat. What is the significance of that? We're commanded in the Torah. The Torah tells us specifically. It says, Basukos Teishvu Shivas Yamim, you should dwell in Sukkot for 7 days, L'man yedu or seichem, so that the generations will know, Ki basukos hushafti es b'nei Yisrael b'otzios hameretz Mitzrayim, ani Hashem Elokeichem. Generations will know that I brought you out of Egypt, and I housed you in these temporary structures, Sukkot, from the time I brought you out of Mitzrayim. So a number of questions are asked. First of all, we know that in celebrating Yom Tovim, we're not just talking about a history, something that happened in the past, but the holidays give us a method for bringing the message into the future. For example, Pesach, Passover. Pesach, we are, of course, reminded of leaving Egypt, but more important is we know that this is Zaman Cheruseinu. It's the time of our freedom. Pesach is the time of our freedom. So that's something that's remembered for generations because it applies to the generations. Shavuot, when we receive the Torah. Shavuot is also not just a story about how thousands of years ago God gave us the Torah, but rather Shavuot is the time to receive the Torah anew. So what's going on with Sukkot? Sukkot it seems like it was a temporary thing in the desert. Why are we remembering that? Why not some of the other miracles in the desert? We look at Sukkot and you ask yourself, okay, we see that God had us dwell in Sukkot during the time in the wilderness. But, okay, what does that tell us about today? You know that everything we learn in the Torah has to have some message for us today as to how to live our lives. Another question that is asked about Sukkot is why do we have this holiday in Tishrei, where we are right now, in the Hebrew month of Tishrei, instead of in Nisan, which is the time that the Jews came out of Egypt. That's when we started living in Sukkot. We started having the temporary shelter. Well, because the temporary shelter is something special. Looking at the miracles of the desert, you would think, well, we have this great miracle of the manna. We were given food ready to eat every single day. We had a miracle of water. We're given water to drink every single day. But yet, we're not commanded to remember those miracles, but only Sukkot. So why? Rashi says, when we talk about Sukkot, he says the reason for Sukkot were the Anane HaKavod, were the clouds of glory that in fact accompanied us and protected us throughout the 40 years in the desert. Today, when we sit in a sukkah, we are doing an amazing thing. We are leaving our homes, leaving the comfort of our homes to go live in a sukkah, eat our meals in a sukkah. We are sitting under the schach, under the covering. The schach represents those Anania Kavod, the clouds of glory. The Netivot Shalom refers to this as Sela de Memenusa. We are sitting under the shadow of Emunah, of belief and trust in God. We're sitting under God's wings, so to speak. God is protecting us. And what we learn from this is that one of the most important of mitzvos, of actions that a Jew must do in order to live as a Jew and to keep mitzvos, is the mitzvah of emunah, the mitzvah of believing. The mitzvah of emunah, Netivot Shalom points out, as do many other meforshim, is the shoresh, is the basis of all the mitzvot. Everything we do, when we try to serve God, we do it from the concept of emunah. We're living in a difficult time now. We have this COVID-19 pandemic throughout the world. It has caused, unfortunately, many deaths, it's caused many illnesses, has wreaked economic havoc on many people. It's a time that, if you let yourself, you could be depressed. But when we go into the Sukkah, we realize that there's nothing to be depressed. Nothing to be depressed about, because we're sitting under God's wings. The Tzela de Meimanusa, the shadow of Emunah. This Emunah then, as we're in there with our whole body, permeates our entire body, so that we will then know that no matter how dark things look, that God is always with us and always protecting us. We talk about the concept of God carrying us out under the wings of eagles. The wings of eagles refer to God's protection of us. As we sit in the Sukkah, we can realize truly what David HaMelech said, Gam ki elech begeitz al maves lo irara. Though I dwell in the shadow of the valley of death, I will not be afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. Why? Because look at me. Look where I'm sitting. I'm sitting in this Sukkah. I'm sitting under the shade and protection of God at all moments of my life. And that is a message that we have for eternity. It's a message for right now, not just during the time we lived in the desert, but right now we have this message of total emunah, belief in God. And it is this belief that enables us to deal with any problem that we have, to deal with all of the depressions that we otherwise have because of our situation. Recognize that God does not leave us alone. God is always with us, even in our most difficult times. So I think that's important to remember, that as we go into the Sukkah, we are reaching what is equivalent to a level of purity. You're purifying your soul, because there are two aspects. There's the aspect of purity and holiness. To achieve purity, you have to separate yourself from all the materiality of the world and live only on a spiritual level. And to receive Kedusha, that's a much higher level than spirituality. So we have the spirituality achieved by going into the Sukkah and recognizing that our emunah is what keeps us going. And we have the Kedusha, the holiness that comes from the Shabbos day. Shabbos day, which is the first day of Sukkot. It says, Basukos Teshvu Shivas Yomim. In Sukkot you shall dwell for 7 days. The first letters of these 3 words spell the word Shabbos. Just as Shabbos is a protection for us, it is all encompassing us. We sit in, as I've said many times, the bubble of Shabbos surrounds us. So too, the bubble of the Sukkah is just like Shabbos, protects us all year long, protects us from anything. I hope everybody takes this message to heart. I wish everybody a Chag Sameach. This is the holiday that we're commanded specifically to be happy about. And I thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, and I wish everybody Shabbat Shalom, V'Chag Sameach.